Hey, cool gray. We are going to try an experiment today. The experiment is part of a collaborative effort that we are calling the Balloon Collab, or the Balloon Technique Collaboration. I belong to a group of YouTube content creators who all do art and crafts called Creative Arts Collaboration. And if you are an art content creator and don't know about the group yet, check the description box below. There will be all kinds of information about the collab, about the group. You should join, you should support watching art on YouTube. So let's get started. What is the Balloon Collab? Well, the rule is it had to be an acrylic pour technique, and it had to use a balloon as the major or featured tool in this particular art piece. Most of us, but not all of us, have never used a balloon before. So that's me. I'm going to be trying it for the first time. I just bought a packet of, these are 9-inch balloons that I got at the party store. I find that I want to use smaller balloons. I think that they'll give me more of a sense of control of what I'm going to do. I'm going to pour some light springy colors in my background, and I'm going to use the balloon in two ways. The first way is wet on wet, just to create an interesting background. I'm going to let that dry for a little while, then I'm going to come back and actually try to use this as a paintbrush to create some flowers, and or maybe it'll be more abstract than I know, but we'll see what happens there. And let me create my wet background. I'm going to just take some white and give myself a nice wet layer to start off with. One of my favorite things to do when I pour, it helps the paint find its way around the canvas with a little bit less trouble. Just spread that out a little bit using my very favorite art tool, my hands. If you watch any of my cooking videos, you'll know that I use those a lot in my cooking as well. I just want to come over the edges a little bit, especially my corners. That's where things tend to get a little bit dicey in pours. And get a nice wet layer. There we go. Okay, and I'm just going to use a paper towel to get my hand clean enough. Now we'll add some sky and some foliage, and I don't want to go too heavy here. I really want to keep a lot of white, but maybe get a little bit of cell work going. So I'm just going to drizzle this on for about 2/3, a little bit more than half, and take my swirled green and yellow and give that a pour in the bottom half. I always like to save a little bit in my cup when I do a pour in case I see a touch-up that needs to happen, and I might need a little bit more of that mixture. Well, here's my balloon. So I'm just going to actually start to dab, and wet on wet, you really don't have a lot of control, but I'm going to come back and try to actually make some intentional shapes a little bit later. But this is what I want to create, sort of a abstract sky and clouds feel. And now I'm going to clean that off a little bit so I don't get too much blue in my green. But I'm going to allow a little bit of that to happen. And now I'm going to come down here and do the same thing. Hopefully that'll create kind of a spring garden-y look. That's my hope. Maybe let some of this foliage come up into my sky a little more. Okay. I've wiped off my balloon. That's what it looks like now, and hopefully I'll be able to come back and use the same balloon later. And as I mentioned about leaving some in my cup, I want to give a little bit more coverage to this area right here, and maybe to this area right here while it's super wet. And just try to integrate that a little bit more into my overall design. Okay. I'm going to let this sit and partially dry for a while. And actually, I think what I may do is torch a little bit because I do see some air bubbles. So let's do some torching, because when is it not a good day for torching? Try and pop some of these air bubbles and maybe even bring up a cell or two. I did not use any silicone in these colors because I wasn't necessarily going for cells. But I do want to pop all those air bubbles. Okay, so there's my sky and my leaves and grass. When I come back, this will be mostly dry, but not completely dry, because I still do want to integrate some of these colors into what I'm doing, but I don't want them to completely blend. You saw how wet that was, but I want to be able to actually create some impressions. And instead of pouring, I'll be taking my balloon and dipping it in some paints, and then using it to kind of stamp a design on here. So that'll be the second part of how I do this. See you in a little while. Well, off camera, after this had been drying for a couple of hours, I did some tilting, and you'll notice a great deal of the green poured over the edge, which is actually what I was trying to do. I really prefer to have the foreground only in the bottom third, and I'm going to make up for some of the sky infiltrating here with my balloon, which I still have. And over here, I have a number of just leftover paints from other projects. And this is going to be a complete experiment. So what I'm going to do is I have a paper plate. It's actually a styrofoam plate here, and a few leafy colors. I'm going to pour just a little bit of each of those onto my plate. And this is essentially going to become my palette. I don't need very much at all. In fact, this may even be more than I'm going to need, but we'll find that out together, won't we? And just for good measure, I'm going to put the teeniest bit of blue in my leaves, just a touch. I'm going to let those be where they are, because this is actually going to work as my brush. It'll blend the things that I want it to blend. I'm actually going to let this spread a little bit because I don't want a thick application. Not that I really know what's going to happen. Then I'm going to just roll my balloon into these colors. Give it a little bit of a roll. And you'll see what I have here. And now I'm going to take that and just try to create some leaves by rolling it right back onto my painting. Now there is some sliding here, which is fine with me because there is still a good deal of wet paint in my background. So I'm actually liking that. I have a choice now. I can either wipe this off, or I can just come back and get a little more, which is what I think I want to do, and try to create some more leaves. And I'm just using a very light pressure and a little bit of a roll, and there is some sliding around in this wet paint, and that is really fine with me. So now I'm just kind of playing and experimenting, and if I feel like there's a little too much blending going on, I can reach over for a paper towel, wipe off my balloon, and come get some fresh paint. I'm just going to roll it in my palette And let's come over here. And I'm going to do one more pass. Maybe here. A little too much sky, still wet here. So I'm going to wipe some of that off. I don't want to carry that forward. See if I can pick up some more of my green. Still wetter than I can work with well. So I may just leave that alone. So there's still some results of the pour and the tilt. And then I've got some of these cool shapes here which are bringing up some cells. So I'm going to turn my little plate around now and try to create a flower. Let's go bold right out of the gates because I've always been a risk taker. So this is really just a primary red. Put a little of that down. These do have Floetrol in them from previous projects. But as far as I know, there's no silicone in any of these. And what I want to do now to this is introduce a tiny bit of, just a tiny bit of white as well. That's my idea of a tiny bit. Container was pretty full. Let's compensate for that with a little bit more of this red. And I'll let them come together a little bit here. And I've got this really pretty kind of peacocky color. I'm gonna just, once again, for my little accent, let a little bit of that come in here. And that just adds some interest. What kind of flower is this gonna be? Could be a poppy, could be a rose. I just don't know. It's a fantasy garden. So I'm gonna roll my balloon in this paint one more time. And that gave me this. I would love to replicate that faithfully on here, but I'm guessing there's going to be some unexpected things about to happen. So I was trying to use a very light pressure that time, since I know my canvas is super wet. Come in the other direction, so the white is on the bottom this time. Try to bring some more red in here. And that's forming the basis of my petals. That's what it looks like on the balloon. And I'm barely touching and just rolling try to get a petal. Let me let that come over the edge a little bit. So now my colors are blending a little bit more than I would like for my next petal. So I'm going to wipe off the balloon. Try to get one more petal there. I think I want a little bit more red on my palette. Come and pick up some white. All right, let's see what happens here. Again, the lightest possible pressure, and I do feel quite a bit of slipping and sliding underneath there. which is sort of what I was after, is a blending. All right. I think I'm going to leave that flower alone. Come back and maybe embellish it when it's a little more dry. So now I'll wipe off my balloon, try to get as much of that red off as possible. And let's do some blues. Now my plate's a little crowded, but there's a good deal of white over here, so that's okay with me. Let's put down some beautiful purple. And some more of my blue. And I don't mind a little bit more, since I only have a little bit of this left. Let's keep some of that in there for interest. All right, let's try again. This time, look at that, it's gorgeous. I'm going to try a slightly different technique. We'll go right in here. I'm just going to tap. That's only using a small portion of the balloon, so I can roll it around some. My sky is still super wet, so I'm limited as to what I can accomplish there, but I'm going to come back in and try it one more time because I'm kind of loving that. Maybe I can convince the sky to play nicely. There we go. Love it. Put a little more of that in this corner. I'll dig it onto my edge here. Give the suggestion of another one of those down here. Wow, look at those beautiful cells. And I would really like a little bit more of this dark green that I have. So let me see what I can do with that, just to bring a little more contrast in. I lost my balloon. It went someplace where I can't reach it. So here's another one. I'll bet nobody else in the collab actually blew their balloon up for you. Still, you should definitely go and watch all of those other videos. This is such a fun technique, and there's really no one way to do it. All right, fresh balloon. The other one's on the other side of the room somewhere. Come in and pick up some of this dark green. I just really want to add a little contrast in here. Since I'm not doing a lot of tilting, I want to get my sides covered. Okay, that's it for the balloon portion of my flowers. I am more than likely going to come back in here and do some embellishments when this is dry. Actually, I just had an idea just this minute. I have some black. I'm just going to put a little bit of it in a cup, and I want to try to do some accenting And for that, I'm going to use a disposable plastic pipette. So I'm going to squeeze the bulb and just try to pick up some of the black in here. I don't need much. I want to give a little bit of definition, so I'm going to try to squeeze very gently and just create a little bit of an outline for this leaf. Got some air in here, and that's what creates a little bubble. Try to pick up some more. This may seem heavy to you, but I've done that before, and it's actually going to add some boldness to that flower as it dries. I'm hoping that black will sink a little bit. Just a little definition. And I have a little plastic, it's a little clay tool that I use sometimes for helping things along. So I just want to thin the line a little bit, make it maybe not quite so heavy. Drag some of my red back into it if I want to break it up some. I'm going to pull some yellow. Squeeze an eensy bit right in the center there. Create some stamens. Try to carry that up a little bit so it looks like this petal comes in front of that. I think that's all that I want to do while it's wet, and I may come back in with some dotting or some other kind of embellishment when it's completely dry, but that's where we're going to leave it for now. That is my contribution to the balloon challenge. Please like this video, like do this if you liked it. It would be super encouraging to me. Definitely make sure you check the description box for all of the other videos in this challenge. Watch what other people do with balloons. They'll all be unique and different, and you may pick up a few wonderful ideas for your next art project. Consider subscribing if you haven't already. Check out the Creative Arts Collaboration on Facebook or here on YouTube. And I would love to see you subscribe and look at some of my other videos, both art and cooking. And I will see you next time.